Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the videos.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ganesh IAS Academy. So, in the last session, we discussed about the current affairs for this year, prelims from polity and governance. So, hope that was kind of some use to you, at least for the last minute preparation. So, as a part of this current affairs discussion, I think we'll focus on environment and we'll discuss the topics that where you can probably expect a question from the environment perspective. And for those who are applying for forest services also, I mean, since environment and science and technology put together, they have a weightage around 40 to 45 questions. Since IFS mains is also the screening test is done through this prelims exam. So a science and tech and environment put together, you might expect around 40 to 45 questions. So it's so this part carries very high weightage. So it's very important that you focus on as many areas as possible with respect to environment and science and technology. So science and technology will be dealing it in another session, but today we'll focus on science and tech. I'm sorry, environment. So first we'll start with the ozone hole. Why this was in news is there was recently a report stating that the ozone hole in Antarctica is getting larger and thinner. There was a news on that. This is something. This is something which is a significant departure from what we've been witnessing. For the last at least 2 or 3 decades, we've been witnessing the recovery of ozone layer. But recently, there is again this thinning of ozone hole, and the ozone hole is becoming larger over the Antarctic regions. So we are just so you can expect a question on that. So you need to focus on the ozone layer, ozone depleting substances, the chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, CCl4. So you need to know about the list of at least a few of the ozone depleting substances. So that that's very important. And then one thing you need to know about ozone, it's a secondary pollutant, which means it's not naturally available. It is formed as a mixture of ozone and not ozone. It's formed due to the combination of oxygen and other residual, say, volatile substances or other pollutants. So it's a secondary pollutant. So you need to know the difference between the primary pollutant and the secondary pollutant. So that you need to know. And then your ozone layer thickness is measured in Dobson's units. So this you need to know. And then you need to know what is a polar stratospheric cloud and what is the role of a polar stratospheric cloud in depletion of ozone layer. So that you need to know. So this is something very important from mains perspective also. And then you need to. There is also one more current affair which this year, India had surpassed the Montreal Protocol target to phase out hydrochlorofluorocarbon. This is 141B. So this is a kind of a refrigerant. So India has surpassed the target that it had fixed under Montreal Protocol. So you need to know what is a Montreal Protocol. First, you need to know what is Vienna Convention. Then you need to know what is Montreal Protocol and the intentions of Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol, and what are the substances that are covered under the Montreal Protocol, and then Kigali Amendment to Montreal Protocol in 2017, and what are the targets that different countries have. Say for instance, US and the other developing countries, developed nations, they have targets to be achieved by 2036. Other developing nations like China, they have targets to be achieved by 2045, and then India has targets to be achieved by 2047. So you need to know what are those targets and what are the base years, and when does the peak will be attained for the use of hydrofluorocarbons. And then you should know the difference between Kigali. Your Kigali amendment focuses on, it doesn't focus on ozone layer depletion, rather it focuses on global warming, reducing global warming, because your hydrofluorocarbons, your HFCs, are more global warming, they have more global warming potential, and they have very low ozone layer depletion potential. So since now ozone layer depletion is under control through Montreal Protocol, now there is an amendment to Kigali Montreal Protocol via this Kigali amendment, which focuses on reducing the global warming effect of the hydrofluorocarbons. So that you need to know. So any convention that you like read, so you need to know about the intent, the year it formed, countries. Maybe I'll just give a, for any conventions or treaties. So first you need to know about the year in which it was signed, whether it is legally binding or not. Then you need to know about the objectives. You need to know about the nations who have like signed, and very particularly whether India has signed that or not. And then status. What is the current status of implementation? So you need to know all this whenever you're like coming across any like convention or a treaty. And then who was the spearheading institution behind that? Institution that spearheaded. So all these you need to know when it comes to any convention or a treaty. So like the next thing is cryosphere region. See, cryosphere is basically your polar region, or like the land surface in polar region is termed as cryosphere. Since in polar regions you have a lot of snow and ice, so your soil is covered with a lot of ice, so that is called as cryosphere region. So why I picked this current affair is because you have a status of cryosphere report from International Cryosphere Climate Initiative. This might be a question directly because UPSC has this habit of asking reports that are released by international organizations. And very lately, since 2018, UPSC is leaving out all the conventional and the very popular organizations, and it's like giving more focus towards all the peripheral and the unimportant yet significant institutions. So this is something which many might not focus on, but still UPSC might be interested in checking this. So that you need to know. And also there's recently an ice melt in Western Antarctica. So the Western, this map. So this is like roughly Antarctica. So this region is experiencing melting. So that you need to, that was a current affair actually. And then you need to know about what is Arctic amplification. See, Arctic amplification is your decline in like ice levels in Arctic region. So basically, your Arctic Sea, which was supposed to have a lot of ice, is slowly becoming just another tropical sea. Not in terms of temperature, but the way it looks. It might be like it's like something closer to losing all of it. ice. So that is your Arctic amplification. So that leads to an event called as blue ocean event. So when the ice area, when it drops below 1 million square kilometer in the Arctic region, so that is called as a blue ocean event. So this term is like very important. So that you need to like note down, because sometimes UPSC might directly ask what does this like event mean. So that you need to know. And then like apart from that, you need to know about UNEP, World Meteorological Organization, and UNDP. So all these organizations you need to be like very thorough. So when it comes to organizations, you need to know about the mandate of the organization, its headquarters, the year in which it was established, the conventions or treaties that it is responsible for implementing, whether India is a member or not, that you need to know. And what are significant achievements. So any organization you need to like cover under these many aspects. So if you do it this way, then it will be fine. We'll go to the next. So next is what? COP28. Conference of Parties 28 for UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Because you have a lot of conference of parties for other conventions, say for biodiversity convention, you will have conference of parties for chemical conventions, you will have conference of parties. So this COP28 deals with uh, UNFCCC. So this COP28 was in Dubai. COP27, if I'm not wrong, it was in Egypt. And the COP26 was in Glasgow, Scotland, and COP25 uh, was like some. I think COP25 you should know. So I think last 3 or 4 conference of parties should know the location and the major outcomes, whatever was agreed upon, or whatever like new initiatives that was taken. So all those things you need to know. And then in this conference of party, there was loss and damage fund was operationalized, and then this declaration on agriculture, food, and climate was agreed upon, and declaration on climate and health, declaration on climate relief, recovery, and peace. So you just need to briefly know about what each of these declarations mean, and then whether India has like accepted or not accepted these declarations. So you need to know that also. And then, as I already said in the previous slide, when it comes to like any organization, you need to know certain mandates which I had referred in the previous slide. So on those lines, you have to read like UNFCCC, and also you need to know about the reports of UNFCCC. And then India had launched this Global Green Credit Initiative. This is like very important because it was an Indian initiative in the Conference of Party 28, and India is like now like focusing more to push this Global Green Credit Initiative scheme. So you need to focus on that as well. And then these like there was one initiative for which India was not a part of, the Global Renewable Energy Efficiency Pledge and Global Cooling Pledge. So these two, and like there are like others also which um, there are other initiatives also for which India was not a part of. So those details also you should know, but these two are like very prominent because by seeing the name Global Renewable and Energy Efficiency Pledge and Global Cooling Pledge, just by seeing the name, you might be like misleaded to think that India might have like signed or agreed upon to this initiative, but actually India has not India is not part of those initiatives, so those things you need to know. Next, so you need to know about the other declarations made on the eve of like Conference of Party 28. There was a Kampala declaration on migration, environment, and climate change, which was done by 48 African nations, and that India is not a part of this declaration because it was done only by 48 African nations. And then data in climate change resilient agriculture. So there is a database that is like prepared by both UNDP and NABARD is like partnering with UNDP for India. So that is to create data on climate resilient agriculture. And then this is a like index climate change performance index is given by German Watch. And then Nairobi Declaration was done on the eve of like first African Climate Summit 2023. So you just need to know what these declarations mean and what these declarations focused on. So if you are like a bit aware of like the declarations and the broad themes that these declarations call in for, I think your preparation on Conference of Parties will be like, reasonably good. Next is carbon credit trading scheme. So this was initiated by Ministry of Power this year, and you need to know like what is a carbon market first of all, like and how it works. So basically, like carbon market is like where you sell your carbon credits. So a carbon credit is basically to understand carbon credit, they assume this is the permitted level of emission for say a company for like any company, and there will be a company A which is emitting more, and there will be a company B which is emitting less. So this is the credit. So this assume this company A is company B. So this is the credit that company B has. This means it has the right to emit, but it doesn't. It's not used yet still. So but at the same time, you have company A, which is excess. So what this company A will do is it will pay and it will get the carbon credit from B. So this is how a carbon market works. So you need to have some idea about that. And then what does Bureau of Energy Efficiency do? Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. So you need to know the statutory status. When was it? Was it statutory body or an executive body? When was it formed? What is the mandate of those institutions? I think all those things you need to know. And then you should, when it comes to carbon credit, you need to understand what Kyoto Protocol is and what are the other forms of carbon like trading which Kyoto Protocol called for. So this is like carbon offsetting. Carbon, you need to know what is a carbon offsetting. Means like you might not be able to like invest in a non-renewable or a non-polluting project in your country, but you might have the financial resources, so you can invest elsewhere in some other country. So that's a carbon offset. And then this is giant implementation where like 2 or 3 countries together collaborate, and then they achieve their uh, reduction in carbon emission levels. And then clean development mechanism is developing alternate sources of energies which are less polluting and less carbon intensive. So that is clean development mechanism. So you need to know what these terms mean, because once you talk about carbon credit, you have to definitely learn about Kyoto Protocol. And Kyoto Protocol, if you're talking about Kyoto Protocol, you have to know about what is carbon offset, what is joint implementation, and what is a clean development mechanism. And then recently, this was in current affair, carbon border adjustment mechanism by European Union, which is nothing but it is actually taxing carbon intensive products from other countries. Actually, India is against this carbon border adjusting mechanism, telling that it is like biased against developing nations, and it is going to affect the like price competitiveness of the Indian products and the products from developing nations. So India is against this, but EU is for it. And then this is also fit for 55 package. This fit for 55 package is like to reduce the emission carbon levels, CO2 levels from the 1990s level in European Union to 55% by 2030. So that is this fit for 55 package. You need to know, and you just browse about what is this Green Deal industrial plan. Just go through the basics, and then common carbon metric. So this is something that is developed by UNEP. So I think if you know, if you like read along these lines, this current affair, you can do justice to that. So next is like life mission. This is our Prime Minister's favorite mission. And in my IFS interview 2023 last year, I was asked a question on this: what does life mission mean, and what our Prime Minister has told for people? So this was a question asked in my personality test of IFS. So this I have picked this because the Ministry of Environment and Forest had launched an app called as Mary Life app. You just go through what that app is and what it focuses on. So this life mission was like launched on the eve of Conference of Parties 26 in Glasgow Summit in Scotland. And then you need to know what are the 7 themes. Your life mission has 7 themes. Like I've just listed a few: save energy, save water, say no to plastic, sustainable lifestyle, and reduce e-waste. There are like 2 more also. So you need to like focus on that. And your life mission focuses more on nudge behavior. So nudge behavior is like making climate change and sustainable living as an integral part of people's life. So to make that, you have to make that a part of people's life and the way they lead their lives. So we need to bring about nudging the behavior of the people. So I think this is something you can quote in ethics answers as well. Then we'll move on to the next. Next is like land degradation. See, there are like a few conventions in environment subject, which whether they are mentioned in the current affairs or not, you have to definitely go through them. So one such convention is the UNCCD. The others are like UNCCD, UN Convention on Combating Desertification, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Biodiversity. So all these, like as I said, like Kyoto Protocol, Montreal Protocol, Rotterdam Convention, so like these conventions, whether they are referred to in current affairs or not, you have to definitely go through them. And I picked this because UNCCD this year has created a dashboard data for like 126 countries to monitor, to get data regarding climate change. Land degradation. So this is like something that you can expect a question on this year. Like that's very important. And then you need to know about the headquarters of like UNCCD, the role that it has taken, and then you need to know what is bond challenge and whether India is a part of it or not. Then you have to know what is national mission for green India and what are the objectives of the mission and what is the status of the national mission for green India right now, and who's the implementing ministry. The implementing ministry is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And then you have the desertification and land degradation atlas from ISRO. So I think if you know along these lines, your current affair for this part is reasonably done. Going next, is Minamata Convention. You know that the Minamata Convention was framed to control the ill effects of methyl mercury in Japan. So it's like a very deadly, methyl mercury is a very deadly pollutant. So recently, Conference of Parties 5 was held in Geneva this year. So you might expect a question. So this convention is legally binding and it focuses on methyl mercury levels, and you need to know what is India doing. And this question was asked in last year prelims. It's not directly asked. I think one of the statement there was something regarding the safe levels of mercury, but actually there is no known safe levels of mercury that's till date. So that statement was supposed to be wrong. So this was asked in 2023 prelims. So you might expect not the same statement, but you might expect a different kind of a statement this year. Next is you need to talk about biodiversity. I picked this because I picked this because you have this Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, which was ratified by GEF. GEF is Global Environment Facility, and when you're reading Global Environment Facility, you need to know what are the institutions or the conventions that it is funding. See, it will fund for UNFCCC, it will fund for UNCCD, it will fund for UN Convention on Biodiversity, and then there are two more conventions or institutions for which your GEF funds. So you need to know what are those conventions or institutions, and then what is this Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and why it is used, what is the purpose of that, you need to know all that. And then what is this Kunming and Montreal Protocol, Global Biodiversity Framework? It was achieved in UN Convention on Biodiversity Conference of Parties 15. This protocol or the framework has actually replaced the IC targets. See, IC targets is something, the targets that you set yourself for the biodiversity conservation. The IC targets was in operation till 2020, but post 2020 there was a need to revisit those targets, and your Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is actually revised targets that were set by IC. So revise the IC targets. So that is it there, and then you need to learn about Global Environment Facility and what is its existence role. I think your Global Environment Facility is managed. One of the managing institutions is World Bank. So what's its existence, roles, focus areas, and who's managing that? All those you need to know. And then there was another global declaration on river dolphins, and India has signed this. So UPSC is now having the habit of asking questions regarding plant species and animal species. I think in last year there was a last year or last before year there was a question on tamarind, not tamarind. I think moringa. There is drumstick versus drumstick tree, and there was a question on the endemism of drumstick tree. So similarly, they might ask you a question on dolphins as well. So you need to know what are the dolphins that are existing in India, whether they are salt water or a river water. So you need to know all that. And then you need to know about this Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Acts. 2001, and it talks about three types of rights: breeders' rights, farmers' rights, and researchers' rights. And you need to know how each of these rights differ and why each of these rights are important. I think those importance thing will come for prelims, but mains. But you need to know, like, there are these three kinds of rights which come under this Protection of Plant Varieties Act. And then you need to know the Biodiversity Act of 2002 was recently amended in 2023. So you need to know what are the amendments and how it differs, and like how the amendment differs. That you need, like how the new amendment differs from the older provisions. You need to know all that. We'll move to the next one. Next one is like other convention and institutions on biodiversity. So you had this Brazzaville summit. It had recently focused on conservation of these three basins: Congo Basin, Amazon Basin, and the Mekong Southeast Asian Basin. So you might not expect very like so microscopic questions, but you just need to be aware of this term. What is this Brazzaville summit? You know where the Brazzaville is like located, and you should know what that summit called in for. And then you need to know what is this World Organization on Animal Health. You should know what is this concept of One Health. This concept of One Health is like very famous since the COVID pandemic, because like initially COVID was like thought to be have acquired from like animal human interface. So you need to know what is this concept of One Health. Like it tells that there is nothing distinct in like health. You need to see the health of ecosystem and the environment as such, and the components or the subsystems in the ecosystems. The health of the subsystems in the ecosystem are interrelated. So that is the concept of One Health. Say for instance, if you are like focusing on health of people, say swine flu, if you do not want that to spread to people, then you need to like focus on the health of the pigs as well, because your swine flu comes from pigs. So if your health of the pigs are not taken care of, then definitely that's going to affect like humans. That is the concept of One Health. And then you need to know about International Whaling Commission, and when it came to existence, what are the mandates, where its headquarters are, and like what it is, what is the status, and what are the recent revisions or the relaxations that it has given, and whether India is a part of it or not. When was India a part of it? All those aspects you need to know. So we'll move to the next one. Next is Wildlife Protection Amendment Act. So this is like very important, especially like if you're preparing for forest services also, because you might expect a question in mains, and you might expect a question in prelims also, since you have forest prelims also through this. So that also you need to like know. So Wildlife Protection Amendment Act, and the major things like I've written here, it has changed the number of schedules from 6 to 4, and it has added a new chapter on Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, CITES Convention. So it has given new chapters to the act to give an effect to the CITES Convention. So this is like very important. And then previously vermin could be declared by the state governments, but now that powers have been stripped off the state government, and only union government can declare who a vermin is. And then it has also allowed elephants for the declaration of not for declaration, for religious purposes. And then there's also a separate discussion on like regulating the invasive alien species. So these are the new additions, new and significant additions in Wildlife Protection Amendment Act. And apart from that, you need to know how this Amendment Act differs from the original act, original or the parent act. And you should know this is, I think, a Wildlife Protection Act came into existence in 1972. After that, it was amended in 1992. It was amended in 2002 once. So you need to know then what number amendment is that. You need to know that also. We'll move to next. Yes, next is the Project Tiger. So this year, not this year, like the last year and the previous last year, 72. Actually, 2022 was 50 years of Project Tiger. But now UPSC is developing this habit of asking current affairs that are like 2.5 years old. So you might expect a question on Project Tiger also. So this year, on effect of this 50 years, this International Big Cat Alliance was formed, and India was one of the founding members. So there are like 7 big cats. So the 7 big cats are like lion, tiger, leopard, snow leopard, cheetah, jaguar, and puma. India doesn't have jaguar and puma, but India has rest all the 5 big cats. So this is like very important. India does not have like all the 7 big cats. India has only 5 big cats. That's important. And you need to know about the National Tiger Conservation Authority because it's implementing and the overall agency which is responsible for implementation of the Project Tiger. And National Tiger Conservation Authority is headed by a Ministry of the Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and it has a vice chairperson who is the Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And then you have other members. You have MPs also represented in that. So those composition, who is the chairperson and powers, what are the powers that it has, all those you need to know. And then you need to know about the tiger reserves. Initially, when Project Tiger was like formed in 2000, not 2000, sorry, 2006, no, 1972. Yes, 1972. 2006 is like something else. Sorry, I'm just confused. So initially, when Project Tiger was formed, you had like around 9 tiger reserves, but as of now, we have 55 tiger reserves. And you need to know the significant tiger reserves, the rivers that are flowing through them. What are the kind of vegetation or the ecosystem that particular tiger reserve has. So you need to know all that. And then the last tiger reserve was Dholpur Kharauli Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan border actually. You need to know that. And then recently, this Project Tiger and Project Elephant together they were merged, and there's a new division that is going to be created in the Ministry of Environment. So that's also one good reason why you might expect a question on Project Tiger. And then you need to know about the 3 zones in a tiger reserve. You have the core zone, you have the buffer zone, and then you have the transition zone. And like you should know what are the activities that are allowed in the core zone. Actually, in core zone there is nothing allowed. And then you have the buffer zone, and then you will have the transition zone. So you need to know what are the activities that are allowed, regulated, or prohibited in each of these 3 zones. So that's like very important. And then you should know about what is this STPF, like Special Tiger Protection Force, that was like formed in the eve of like Project Tiger to protect tigers and then like prevent their illegal hunting or their poaching. And then this M Stripes is the app that is used in like taking surveys for the tigers. And then this eBird app is basically it uses like unmanned aerial vehicles to count the number of tigers that are available in a particular region. And since like UPSC has started asking questions regarding as I said earlier, it has started asking questions regarding plant species and animal species. Like you need to know about the IUCN status of like Royal Bengal tiger, the scientific names Manthara tigris, IUCN status, the range, the countries in which it is like found, the ecosystem or the kind of ecosystem that it is, that in which it will live. And then this TX2 initiative is like doubling the tiger population initiative. And then you need to know about the St. Petersburg Declaration. So you might be even asked just by giving these two terms, TX2 and St. Petersburg Declaration are discussed in the eve of, or in the context of, you might have four options. So you might get a simple question like this also. It's important that you once you have Project Tiger, so it's important you cover Project Tiger under all these dimensions. That will be very good. We'll move to the next one. Next is like Project Cheetah. So this is again, Project Tiger was pet project of our former Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. But this Project Cheetah is like the pet project of our current Prime Minister, or the incumbent Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. So I think you might, because Project Cheetah was on news for the past 2 years, so you might expect a question on that. So National Tiger Conservation Authority is the implementing agency. It sees the overall. It's the responsible agency institution for the overall implementation of Project Cheetah. And then you need to know where are the new tigers, sorry, the cheetahs that are like brought from Africa are like released into. So it's in Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. And then you need to know why the cheetahs are why have we have got African cheetahs rather than Asiatic cheetahs, because Asiatic cheetahs are found in Iran and you have only around 13 in number. But regional wise and climate wise, ecosystem wise, we should have gone for Asiatic cheetahs, but we went for African cheetahs for one good reason. One good reason is that Iran already has only 13 Asian cheetahs and it cannot give us like more than 50 cheetahs. But African nations like Namibia have like committed to like give India over 50 cheetahs like on a periodic basis. So that's the reason why we have gone in for like African cheetahs. And also like African cheetahs and Asiatic cheetahs, they share a common ancestor, so it might not be a big deal for it to like accommodate to Indian and Asian conditions. So that's the reason we have like gone in for African cheetah. And then you need to know the difference between African cheetah and Asiatic cheetah. So this is something that UPSC hasn't touched upon till now, I guess. So maybe in terms of the size or their capacity to hunt or the physical appearance or based on the dots, based on their fur, you need to know the difference between an Asiatic cheetah and African cheetah. So that's very important. And one of the like exciting and interesting fact is that cheetahs do not roar. It's the only member of the cat family which doesn't roar. Because the other cat family members they roar, but the cheetah doesn't roar. If you have seen any wildlife documentaries, you just see that the cheetah, the way cheetah like makes sound, it look as though if it is like laughing. So it will be like that, or it's like playing with. It will be like some kids playing with their friends. So it will be like that. That's the kind of sound. And the gestation period is like 93 days. I think I have picked gestation period because in 1 year, I think in 2021 or 2020, I'm not very sure, there was a question on gestation period of, not a question, there was a statement that was given on gestation period of elephants. I think it was given some 22 months. I think that statement was right. But when I gave my exam that year, I was like slightly clueless. So it's like important that you know, you not exactly remember 93 days, but you just remember somewhere like it's just like 3 months. But like we can at least eliminate some options. And then you need to know about all these terms. What is a flagship species? What is an umbrella species? What's a keystone species? And then you need to know what is an indicator species. So you need to know like there's a very small nuance between like all these terms: flagship species, umbrella species, and keystone species. You need to know the difference between like all those, and then you need to know the difference between a leopard and a cheetah. So what is the difference between a leopard and a cheetah? That also you need to know. I think your cheetah has a kind of like a mark or something that runs from here to here. Assume like this is your eyes. Sorry for my like poor drawing, but hope this will make sense. The cheetah will have some mark from starting from here till here. Your leopard will not have such thing, and your leopard is a larger animal when compared to a cheetah. And the fur difference is also there between a leopard and a cheetah. So you just go through the differences between leopard and the cheetah. That's like very important, and then you need to know about the IUCN status of cheetah. I think it's vulnerable. Asiatic cheetah is critically endangered, but your African cheetah is like vulnerable. So you need to know on these aspects. So with that, like sufficiently you would have covered Project Cheetah. Moving next. Next is like Project Elephant. Because I've picked Project Elephant because recently our president had gone in for this Gaj Utsav in Kaziranga National Park. So now you need to know about the flora, fauna, the ecosystem, the rivers that are passing through Kaziranga National Park. In fact, your Kaziranga National Park houses over 65 to 70% of the world's entire rhino population. Sorry, not Kaziranga National Park. Assam as a whole, the state as a whole houses about like 65 to 70% of the entire world's one-horned rhino population. So that's like some very interesting fact. And then you need to know about the elephant reserves. What are the reserves, and which state has maximum number of elephant reserves? That also you need to know. And then what are the other aspects of Project Elephant? Say for instance, see any project, not like just Project Elephant. One bigger advantage or the need to conserve the species is if you are going to conserve a particular species, you cannot do it standalone. If suppose you are in for conservation of tiger via Project Tiger, you cannot conserve tiger unless you have a healthy herbivore population. Herbivore population, you need to manage your forests well. If you want your forests to be managed well, you need to take special care. You need to like keep a check on the invasive species. You need to keep a check on forest fires. You need to keep a check on degradation of grasslands. You need to keep a check on the availability of water sources that are available within the ecosystem or the forest ecosystem. So since conserving a species, that too a top apex species in the food chain, will actually help you in conserving the entire environment. So that's one of the reason why specific projects to conserve animals are welcomed and must be done. So that's the reason. So in Project Elephant also, the focus was not only on conserving elephants but also it was also focused on conserving their habitats as well. So you need to know the elephant reserves which are present, and then you need to know about the state wise. So your Karnataka tops in the number of elephants, followed by Assam, followed by Kerala. And I think in India we have around 30,000 elephants, if I'm not wrong. Gestation period of like elephants is like 22 months, and the IUCN status is like endangered. And you need to know what are the like terms must, matriarch, and Gajraj. Your must is the period where your elephants look for partners to mate. So that period is called as must. Your elephant is a matriarchal animal, so it's like often headed by a female elephant. And then you need to know what is Gajraj. Gajraj is an app or a portal. Yes, you just go through these terms, and then you need to know the difference between your African and Asian elephant. Your African elephants are like huge compared to your Asian elephants, and in your African elephants, both your male and female have tusks, whereas in Indian elephant only the male has tusks. So, and your African elephants will have a double hump on the head. Assume like this is the head of the elephant. So, like again, sorry for my poor drawing. Assume this is the head. So, your African elephant will have like two humps, whereas your Indian elephant will have just one hump. and the size of the ear of the African elephant is like higher when compared to that of an Indian elephant. So like this, you have a lot of differences. You need to know both. And in India, you have elephants in forests, whereas in Africa, you can find them even in grassland and desert ecosystem. Not desert ecosystem, grasslands, savannas. You can find a lot of elephants. Like that's the difference. You go to the next. Next is the Rhino project. Next is the Rhino project. You need to know the IUCN status of rhino. It's like vulnerable. And then your Assam, it has 71% of world's rhino population, so you need to know that. And in species of rhino, there are totally 5 species of rhino in the world. So 3 are in Asia: the Sumatran, Javan, and the one-horned rhinoceros. Your Sumatran and Javan rhinoceros are critically endangered, whereas your one-horned rhinoceros is vulnerable. And you have 2 rhino species in Africa: white and black rhinos. So totally there are 5 species. So you need to know that. So you need to know what is this India Rhino Vision 2020. So basically, this India Rhino Vision 2020 is like to improve the number of rhinos, and at the same time, it is also about diversifying the habitat. Like at least like 60 to 70% of the rhinos which are available in Assam is concentrated in Kaziranga National Park. So this Rhino Vision 2020 is to increase the numbers and at the same time diversify the habitat of rhinoceros as well. So that is the Rhino Vision. And then you need to know about what is this New Delhi Declaration on rhinos. So that detail also you should know. So with that, if you like, and then if at all you want, you can the range of rhinos, in which all countries rhinoceros is found, and then why they are hunted, why they are poached, what are the like aphrodisiac properties of the horns of the rhinoceros. So all those you need to have some idea. Next is like a ban on drugs. Next is like ban on drugs. See, before like going to this, you need to know about what is bioaccumulation. You need to know what is bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Okay, this bioaccumulation is how your chemicals enter into the food chain, whereas your biomagnification is how they amplify or concentrate as and when it reaches the higher levels, higher trophic levels in the food chain. So you need to know these two terms, the difference between these two terms. And then recently, this ketoprofen and aceclofenac, these 2 drugs were banned. These are like anti-inflammatory drugs which are given for cattle. So actually, these like drugs have been found to these 2 drugs have been like found to cause renal failures in vultures. There was also already one more drug which was banned, that was diclofenac. diclofenac. Diclofenac is already banned, and now ketoprofen and aceclofenac are now banned again. So maybe you can expect a direct question on that. What are ketoprofen, aceclofenac, and diclofenac? Are terms that are used in the context of. So you might have one, two, three, four options. So those are like chemicals that are found on drugs. And then this was done by Central Drug Standards Control Organization, which is a body under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So you need to know that. I think this your question on the CDSO SEO was asked in 2018 prelims. One statement was on this, and then since this is something related to death or like life of vultures, you need to know what are the vulture species that are found in India and their IUCN status. I think there are a few vulture species which are found in India which are critically endangered and endangered. I guess like total there are 9 vulture species, and a few are like endangered and a few are critically endangered. So it's enough if you know only those names. I think with that your this current affair will be like done. Go to the next one. Red Sanders. Like I picked this because like one reason is UPSC is like asking questions which are like specific to a particular species, or in statements you can have 3 different species and you can have 3 different statements describing the 3 species. So I took Red Sanders because recently the export policy on Red Sanders was revised. So you might expect a question on Red Sanders as well, whether its IUCN status or the region, its geographical distribution, or the kind of climate, where it is found, and whether it's a drought resistant or a flood resistant variety, or it's whether fast growing or a slow growing tree. So anything, any or the flora and fauna that accompanies the environment where your Red Sanders is grown. I think like all those areas, you might expect a question. So expect question on Red Sanders. So apart from that, you have like some other tree species like say sandalwood. You can expect a tree on sandalwood. I think drumstick tree already there was a question. So expect a question on tamarind tree. Banyan tree. Palm tree. Date palm. Oil palm. So with respect to all these tree species, you need to know to which region it is endemic to. I think some trees are endemic to India, but some are not endemic to India. Some are introduced from elsewhere. For instance, your oil palm is not endemic to India. It is from Malaysia and Indonesia. So like this, you need to recover as many tree species as possible. And like apart from that, their IUCN status, their conservation status, all those things you need to know. Next is like eco-sensitive zones. Eco-sensitive zone term, which we have like often come across, but the term was introduced as part of National Wildlife Action Plan of 2002. So the National Wildlife Action Plan of 2002, it had introduced the term eco-sensitive zone under the Environment Protection Act. So it's usually a 10-kilometer boundary around the national park and a wildlife sanctuary. And recently, Supreme Court had said that it should be the area around a national park. It should have an eco-sensitive zone of minimum of 1 kilometer. So this was a recent Supreme Court verdict. So this is the reason like why I picked this current affair. And then you need to know about the activities that are allowed, activities that are regulated, and activities that are prohibited. Say for instance, your horticulture and organic farming is allowed, your fishing, collecting non-forest produce, all those are regulated. But other activities which disturbs the ecosystem like mining, they are totally prohibited. So you need to know the difference between the activities that are allowed, the activities that are regulated, and activities that are prohibited. So you need to have idea think about this. Next is the Central Empowered Committee. See, this Central Empowered Committee is not something new. If you want to know about this committee, you need to know about the history of the forest case, the famous forest case in India, which is the Godavarman T.N. Godavarman Thirumalpad case versus the state. So, according to that, as the case progressed, the Supreme Court started giving a lot of directions. So it gave a lot of directions, and it gave new interpretation to the Forest Conservation Act. It sort of regulate the presence of present or already existing sawmills and the existence of new sawmills, transportation of the logged woods. So it was giving a lot of directions regarding the conservation of forest in India. So to oversee all those directions, there was a central empowered committee that was formed. It did not have any statutory status. It was just a body that was convened by the Supreme Court of India. But recently, it has been given a statutory status. So this is something like very important, especially if you are preparing for forest services. It's very important from mains point of view also. So that's the reason like I've picked this. So you need to know about a brief about the Godavarman Thirumalpad case, and then you need to know about the composition of the Central Empowered Committee, the function, and the jurisdiction it has. So if you like cover all these aspects, then it is like reasonably like good. Next is like high seas. Now, recently, this last year, we had this world's first convention, international treaty to protect the high seas. It was like done by the UN. UN clause had played a major role in bringing that convention, and then it's a legally binding convention. So you need to know that, and then you need to know the maritime zones. You need to know what is that exclusive economic zone, what is the high sea. So you need to know there's a difference, right? Like starting from your continental shelf to the high seas, there's a gradual differentiation of regions. So you need to know all those differentiations. If you know that, I think yeah, this current affair is like reasonably covered. Yeah, next is like coral reefs. You have this international coral reef initiative. You have this coral reef breakthrough. So you need to know what is this coral reef breakthrough, and you need to know about the differences, distribution of corals in India and the world. Like as the common conception is that corals are found only in tropical regions. No, corals are found in temperate regions as well. So it's like very important to understand that. But they are like brown corals. Sorry, they are brown corals. They're not the corals that are found in the tropical waters, but corals are found in temperate waters as well. That's like something very important. And then you need to know about the temperature and the sunlight conditions. It can survive only in like 27 degree Celsius. Like it has a narrow temperature range, and it needs sunlight to survive. Like that's very like important, and without that, it can lead to like coral bleaching. And to know about the Great Barrier Reef. Great Barrier Reef in Australian waters. You have like a major part of the barrier reef is witnessing coral bleaching, so that's very important. We need to know what is this zooxanthellae and what is a polyp. and what is the symbiotic association between them. That is all very important. You need to know what is a coral polyp, and then you need to know what is epizootics and xenobiotics. See, epizootics is something where the coral bleaching happens due to spread of zoonotic diseases, say like virus or a bacteria or like whatever. Whereas your xenobiotics is something where your coral bleaching happens because of chemicals that are found in the water ecosystem. So that is epizootics and xenobiotics. I think till now UPSC hasn't touched upon those terms, but like be very, like you can expect a question on zootics and xenobiotics as well, as far as this coral reefs are concerned. So apart from that, you need to know the distribution of corals in India and the world, and the efforts that are taken in conservation. I think one year, I think in 2021 or 22, there was a question on the technology that is used to uh, like conserve corals. I'm not able to recollect that question, but that technology was used to conserve corals was asked in 2021 or 22 prelims. It's like very important that you know that. Next is like wetlands. I think wetland definition you can get it from any textbook. Your Ramsar site definition of wetland is there, but one thing which you need to know is your Ramsar Convention definition of wetland and your Indian government's definition of wetland are both different, because India doesn't classify running waters as a wetland, and man-made wetlands are not considered a part of wetlands in India, but the Ramsar site considers all those. So as far as these wetlands are concerned, you need to know about the latest Ramsar sites that are notified, at least the last 3 or 4 new ones, because every year or the every alternate year you have questions regarding Ramsar sites in prelims paper. I think last year, last before year, last 2 years continuously we had questions on Ramsar sites. They'll ask you Ramsar site and the state in which to which they belong to. So it's like important that you know at least like 2 or 3 Ramsar sites from every state. And it's not that every state has a Ramsar site. I think you have Tamil Nadu has around 16 Ramsar sites, which is the highest in India. And then there are sites like states with just one Ramsar site also. So you need to know a majority of the Ramsar sites. You need not memorize everything, but it's like better if you know at least like 3 or 4 Ramsar sites from every state. So that's like very very important. And then we have right now we have around 80 Ramsar sites in India, and we have 16 in Tamil Nadu. And natural, man-made, you need to know whether they are natural or man-made also. I think in 2018 there was this question on man-made lake. Like 4 options were given, and there was a question on which of the following is a man-made lake or a man-made ecosystem. There was some kind of a question like that. So you need to know, you need to like read a wetland from this perspective also. That's also like important. Okay, maybe I'll just add one more. I just forgot to add. You need to read about mangroves as well. When it comes about mangroves, you need to know what is Nishti. You need to know about the geographical distribution, both in world as well as in India. What are the adaptive mechanisms? You need to know about the adaptive mechanisms. What are pneumatophores? What is vivipary reproduction? And then you need to know what is an ecotone. because mangroves are generally found in ecotone regions. And what are the species that a mangrove supports? I think you need to cover mangroves from like these perspectives. We'll go to the next one. So like these are like some of the terms that I found out which were like which can be asked in the exam. So the first thing is like parthenogenesis. See, parthenogenesis is like generally if you want to reproduce, you'll need both an egg and a sperm from two different sexes. But parthenogenesis is a kind of reproduction where just the female alone reproduces, or the eggs, one egg and the other egg, they both fuse together to form a child. So that is the um, concept of parthenogenesis, and recently this was witnessed in one of the crocodiles. So that's the reason why this was in news. And then you need to know what is an eDNA. And this is like mangrove initiative for sustainable habitat, mangrove initiative for shoreline habitat, and tangible initiative. Mangrove initiative for shoreline habitat and tangible income. Just sorry for the spelling mistake. This is like tropicalization. Tropicalization is like usually the tropic waters have like very high temperature when compared to the temperate waters. So tropicalization is the kind of climate that is there in the tropic waters is like expanding to the temperate and the polar region. So that is tropicalization. So you need to like read about that tropicalization as well. This this tropicalization is like very significant. This tropicalization is like very important in the context of climate change. Next is this cryptobiosis. Whenever you witness a term crypto, assume that it is something related to ice. So your cryptobiosis is like rejuvenating a living species or a living cell which is found in the ice by doing some research on it. So that is cryptobiosis. So you need to like focus on that. And next is Operation Catch-up. Catch-up is like serving the gangetic turtles. You just need to like go through, have some idea. But these are like some of the terms that I shortlisted, which I felt it might be asked in the exam. So you need to like focus on these terms quite well. Next is, we'll go to the next institutions and news. So ZSI is Zoological Survey of India. So you need to know where is Zoological Survey of India located, what is its mandate, since when it is come into existence, what it is doing, what are the roles, what are the research works it is doing, how does it help the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and then you need to know about the Wildlife Institute of India. It's a not-for-profit organization. And then Worldwide Fund for Nature. You need to know about that. You need to know about IUCN International Union Convention, IUCN for Conservation of Nature. So that you need to know. You need to know CITES, Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, and then you need to know about UNEP and like WMO. I think already I gave you a list, right? You need to know about the mandate of the organization, headquarters, functions, work till now, any conventions that is working for. So you need to know all this, and then the reports. This is like very important. The reports that are released by institutions. That's also like very important. So you need to like study all these institutions in all these aspects. We'll just go to the next one. Sovereign green bonds. So like this green bond is there in use for the last like 4 or 5 years, and in 2022 there was a question on greenwashing. You should know what is greenwashing, where countries actually do not, they give only targets, or like they give only they have only goals, but they do not follow them, and they actually produce like data or evidences which falsely claim that they have like followed such a data. They have followed their target. So that is greenwashing. It was asked in 2022. So that's the reason like I picked it again. So now you have to know what is a green bond. Your green bond is nothing but it's a financial instrument that is used to fund projects or initiatives that conserves nature or wildlife or forests. Your social bond is something, it's again a financial instrument that is used to like promote the social well-being. Say like you invest in health infrastructure, educational infrastructure, sanitation. And sustainability bond is to fund projects which focus on sustainable living. And then rhino bond, just from the name, it's like just financial package to, not an package, it's an instrument to conserve rhinoceros. So for sovereign green bond, you need to focus on like all these areas. Next is like global solar facility. It is to attract private money for funding the grid projects, solar grid projects. It was initiative by the International Solar Alliance. So since the International Solar Alliance has come into picture, you need to know about the headquarters, its roles, initiatives, and then you need to know what is this One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative. If you like read it along all these lines, this current affair will be like covered like significantly. We go to the next. National Green Hydrogen Mission is like very important from both prelims as well as mains perspective. This is an initiative of the Ministry of Renewables, and you need to know about the type of hydrogens. What is green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, gray hydrogen, pink hydrogen, and black hydrogen? For instance, your pink hydrogen is something. Your pink hydrogen is something where your hydrogen is formed from nuclear energy. So that is your pink hydrogen. So similarly, you need to know what is black, blue, green, everything. And then you need to know about the subcomponents of a green hydrogen mission. You have something called ship, you have something called site. Just go through what those terms are. These are like very important subcomponents of green hydrogen mission. You can just be given these two terms and then ask what it is associated with. And then you need to know about what is hydrogen's potential as a fuel, and how does it fare as a fuel. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Your advantages, like you can store a large amount of hydrogen fuel in a relatively smaller container. For the disadvantages, and one more advantage, it's relatively a cleaner fuel. It's like environment friendly. It doesn't emit the carbon dioxide. It only produces heat and steam as a byproduct. and it's a cleaner fuel relatively. But one of the disadvantages of hydrogen fuel is it's a costlier fuel, and it increases the cost of vehicles as well. So that's, you will find it like very tough to bring about acceptability among the uh, vehicle users. So that's like one of the drawbacks of hydrogen being used as a fuel. And then you need to know what is a hydrogen fuel cell. That's also like very important. Go to the next. Biofuels. So first you need to know what is a biofuel, and then you need to know what are the ethanol blending targets in India for petrol and diesel, and how far we have fared, whether there was any revision or not, whether there was any revision in the years or not, whether there was a revision in the targets or not. All those you need to know. And you need to know about the 4 generations of biofuel. Your first generation biofuel is something that is derived from edible food products, whereas your second generation is from non-edible food products, say the stalks, stubbles, all that. And your third generation is from algae, and your fourth generation is from genetically modified microorganisms. These are the 4 generations. And then you need to know about the SETAT initiative, which is an initiative under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. You need to know what is that. And then you need to know about what is a compressed biological biogas, and what are the components of a biogas. That is like very important, because you might get questions from a biogas or the component of a biogas in one of the statements. And then you need to know what is an electric flex fuel vehicle. An electrified flex fuel vehicle is something which can accept a wide different types of fuels or a mix of fuels. It can accept one fuel, it can accept a fuel A or a fuel B or a mix of both. So that is your flex fuel. And then you need to know about the Bharat stage norms. What is a diesel particulate filter and selective catalytic reduction systems? So that is like DPF, diesel particulate filter and selective catalytic reduction system. So you need to know like these two is these are like, if you cover biofuel, these are the areas which you need to touch upon. Okay, this is the last slide. So like here what we are going to do is, since geography, let's give you some broad like idea about like how you have to prepare for geography. First you have to like go with your NCERT. I think by this time you would have done, but you just take all disasters. So say earthquake, tsunami, landslide, floods, urban floods, tides. It's not a disaster but a phenomena. Waves. So you just study around these two. If at all you're like studying about any disaster, means causes, geographic distribution of the disaster, vulnerability, vulnerability map, and any institution involved to combat that. So you need to study on these aspects. Next, you need to know about in climatology. You need to know about the world climate, the checkerboard, world climate horoscope. That is like very basic. Then the layers of atmosphere, what are the different layers of like troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, and what are the significance of each layer, and what are the a phenomena, atmospheric phenomena that happens on all these layers. So all those you need to know. And then rainfall distribution, India and world. That you need to know. Next, flora and fauna in India and preferably world. You need not like cover every flora and fauna that is available on Earth. Some flora and fauna which are like endemic to India or like which are in news. I think all those you need to know. You need to know about national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, elephant reserves, and then in oceanography, all the ocean phenomena like say tide, El Nino, La Nina. So all those oceanic phenomena. You need to know what is a spring tide, neap tide, when does it happen, relation between a new moon, full moon, eclipse. So all those aspects you need to cover. I think all these aspects would have been covered in NCERT. You need to cover, and then you need to like know about like population density, population density in India, different crop varieties. Crop varieties, it's better you like read it from map. Just have a map like this and then just tell like what are the regions which are like major producers, like at least like top 2 or 3 major producers of every crop. You need to know that. And then area under crop variety. I think UPSC is like very much interested in knowing about the largest producers of crop and as well as the area under the crop. I think in 1 year they had compared the area of sugarcane cropping and oilseed cropping, I think, if I'm not wrong. So you need to like focus on that, focus on industries um, where like minerals are found, which is the largest state for producing copper. I think NCRT has a good like indications to topics like that. You need to focus on all that. I think if you like read it under like such a way, your geography becomes like easy. So apart from that, you need to like read about El Nino, La Nina, Indian Ocean dipole, Pacific decadal oscillation, and what is that, and then Atlantification. Your Pacific decadal oscillation is your Pacific Ocean, your Western Pacific Ocean becoming like too colder, and your Eastern Pacific Ocean becoming too warmer. That's your Pacific decadal oscillation, and then Atlantification is your Arctic Sea receiving more like warm and saline waters from the um, Atlantic Ocean. So that is your Atlantification. So if at all there is anything that needs to be added in like geography, it will be like added in the subsequent session as well. But as of now, this is there. See, we cannot like exactly predict what UPSC is going to ask, but at the same time, like these are like a few areas which you cannot miss upon. There's like quite a large number of chances that at least you will get 5 or 6 questions from the topics, that not the exact questions I'm talking about, at least from the areas that we have discussed, from these 30 areas, at least like 5 or 6 questions you might be expecting questions. So that's the purpose of this session. Hope it you find it like useful. So we've covered like 2 sessions, one on polity governance and one on environment and geography. So the next session will be on science and tech, and we'll have one more session on economy and one session on history and art and culture. So with that, we'll just wind it off. So that's it for this session. Thank you.